A dog named Biscuit waits by the door every evening. Her owner walks in, drops the keys on the counter, and within seconds her tongue is everywhere, hands, wrists, the side of a face still cold from outside. Most people call this affection. Most of the time, it is. But there's a second kind of licking that looks almost identical and means something entirely different. Biscuit's owner noticed it on a Tuesday night. 30 straight minutes of licking the same patch of couch cushion, eyes glassy, body somewhere else. Nothing she did pulled Biscuit out of it. Not a treat. Not a walk to the kitchen. Not even the sound of the leash coming off its hook, which on any normal evening would have had her spinning in circles by the door. Veterinary behaviors have a name for this. They call it the panic lick, and once you know how to spot it, you start noticing it everywhere. In dogs at the park who won't stop working at one paw. In dogs left alone who return to the same corner of a rug every single day. In dogs who seem perfectly healthy until the moment the tongue starts and doesn't stop. This is a behavior most owners have seen, and almost none have been taught to read. So let's take it apart properly. Where it comes from, what it's protecting the dog from, and the exact moment it stops being harmless and starts being an emergency. Licking starts as biology, not emotion. A mother dog licks her newborns to clean them, to stimulate their first breaths, and to bond with them in the minutes after birth. That behavior gets wired into the brain before a puppy ever opens its eyes, which is why grown dogs still fall back on it decades into their lives. Add in the fact that human skin carries salt, especially after a workout or a hot afternoon outside, and a few gentle licks at the front door make complete biological sense. It costs the dog nothing, and it satisfies something ancient. The panic lick breaks that pattern in a way that's easy to miss the first few times you see it. Instead of a handful of soft licks that trail off on her own, the dog locks onto one spot and won't release it. An arm, a cushion, the carpet, sometimes the bare floor near a doorway. Pull the arm away, and the dog doesn't stop. It just finds a new surface and starts again, often within a second or two, as if the target never mattered in the first place. Biscuit's owner tried exactly that on that Tuesday night, and watched her move straight from the couch to the carpet without missing a beat, tongue already working before her paws had settled. There's a second tell that's easy to overlook if you're only watching the tongue. Watch the eyes instead. A dog giving an affectionate lick is present, ears soft, eyes checking your face, tail usually moving. A dog in the middle of a panic lick often isn't tracking you at all. The eyes glaze, the body goes rigid or oddly loose, and the dog seems to be somewhere else entirely, running on a loop it didn't choose to start and can't choose to end. Humans reach for antacids the moment their stomach turns on them. Dogs only have one tool available, and it's saliva. Dog saliva runs alkaline, which means it can blunt stomach acid on its way back up the esophagus, so a dog dealing with reflux, nausea, or a burning gut will lick anything within reach simply to manufacture enough of it to swallow. Vets increasingly trace this back to a condition called intestinal permeability, though most people know it by its plainer name, leaky gut. The lining of the small intestine is built from cells packed edge to edge, working like a security checkpoint that lets nutrients through into the bloodstream, while keeping bacteria, toxins, and undigested proteins locked out. Chronic stress, a poor quality diet, or a long course of antibiotics can force those cells apart at the seams. Once the gaps open, bacteria and undigested food particles start leaking directly into the bloodstream, and the immune system responds the way it would to any invasion, with inflammation, bloating, and pain the dog has no vocabulary for except through its tongue. A dog named Otis, a 5-year-old beagle mix, went through exactly the cycle for almost 2 months before anyone connected the dots. His owner described a nightly routine, dinner at 6, a walk at 7, and by 9 o'clock Otis working obsessively at the leg of the coffee table for 20 minutes straight. A vet visit and a stool test later. Otis was diagnosed with a mild case of intestinal permeability, likely triggered by a cheap grain heavy kibble he'd been eating for years. A diet change resolved the nightly licking within 12 days. A panic lick that shows up consistently after meals, or wakes a dog from sleep in the middle of the night, points toward the gut before it points anywhere else. It's one of the more reliable patterns vets look for during a first consultation, because it narrows down the list of possible causes almost immediately. Sometimes blood work comes back completely clean, the stool sample shows nothing unusual, and the licking continues anyway. That's because licking doesn't only calm the stomach, it calms the brain, and the two systems aren't as separate as they might seem. Each lick triggers a small release of dopamine, enough to create a mild, self-soothing loop that a dog can fall into almost involuntarily. A thunderstorm outside, a move to a new house, hours spent alone during a long workday. Any of these can push a dog toward licking as a coping mechanism, in much the same way a person might bite their nails down without noticing they're doing it. The behavior isn't a character flaw. It's the nervous system reaching for the nearest available tool. Left unaddressed, that loop can deepen into something closer to canine obsessive-compulsive disorder. A dog might work through the fabric of a bedsheet night after night, or lick at one paw until the skin breaks open into a wound vets call an acrylic granuloma, a raw, often infected sore that can take months of bandaging and medication to fully heal. A retriever named Sasha spent almost a year cycling through this exact pattern before her owner realized the trigger wasn't boredom, as everyone had assumed, but the 11-hour stretch she spent alone 5 days a week. A change in daycare schedule did more for her than any cream or cone ever did. There's a version of this that has nothing to do with anxiety or the gut, and it can turn fatal inside a single night without anyone realizing what happened until it's too late. Emergency vets see it often enough that it has become a familiar, heartbreaking story on overnight shifts. Someone applies a medicated cream before bed, climbs under covers, and a loving dog licks the treated skin while everyone in the house is asleep. Hormone creams, the kind prescribed for menopause symptoms or thyroid issues, can trigger bone marrow suppression in a dog's much smaller body, sometimes after nothing more than a few casual licks. Psoriasis creams containing a drug called calcipotriene can spike a dog's blood calcium high enough to shut down the kidneys within a day or two. Arthritis gels like diclofenac, sold under names like Voltaren, can open stomach ulcers and cause internal bleeding inside 24 hours, sometimes with almost no visible warning signs until the dog is already in serious trouble. None of this is meant to frighten anyone away from using the medication they actually need. It's a reminder to cover the treated area, long sleeves, pants, a closed bedroom door, until the cream has fully absorbed into the skin, usually somewhere between 30 minutes and a couple of hours depending on the product. It costs almost nothing in effort, and it removes one of the more preventable emergencies vets deal with on a weekly basis. Yelling at a dog in the middle of a panic lick doesn't stop the behavior, and it rarely even slows it down. What it does is add fear on top of whatever pain, nausea, or anxiety started the episode in the first place, which tend to make the next episode worse rather than better. A lick mat solves more of this than most owners expect going in. Smear on plain yogurt, pumpkin puree, or peanut butter with no xylitol in the ingredient list. Freeze it solid, and hand it over when the licking starts. The dog gets the same dopamine release it was chasing, just redirected onto something safe instead of a couch cushion or a bedsheet, and a properly frozen mat can occupy a dog for 20 to 30 minutes, which is often enough to break the loop entirely. If the gut looks like the likely culprit, a canine-specific probiotic mixed into daily meals, alongside a few spoonfuls of plain bone broth with no onion or garlic, can settle things within a matter of days rather than weeks. Finely crushed pumpkin seeds add an extra layer of support once they're ground fine enough for a dog's digestive system to actually break down and absorb. The line for calling a vet is simpler than most people assume. Occasional licking after getting into something questionable in the backyard usually resolves on its own within a day or two. Licking that shows up daily, pacing that won't settle, or licking paired with vomiting and diarrhea means it's time for blood work and a proper exam, not another home remedy pulled from a video. None of these 4 causes, grooming instinct, stomach trouble, anxiety, or a dangerous medication left uncovered, look identical from the outside, but each one leaves its own pattern if you watch closely enough over a few days. Timing matters more than most owners realize. Licking that clusters around meal times leans toward the gut. Licking that spikes during storms, fireworks, or long stretches alone leans toward anxiety. Licking that appears only after a specific cream or lotion goes on your skin has nothing to do with your dog's health at all, and everything to do with what's sitting on your arm. Biscuit's story ended with a diet change and a lick mat kept permanently in the freezer. The nightly episodes dropped off within a week and haven't returned in the 8 months since. Otis needed a food swap. Sasha needed a change in her daytime routine, rather than any medication at all. Three dogs, three different triggers, and the exact same tongue doing the talking the whole time. Not every dog's tongue is asking for help. A few soft licks at the door, a cheek nuzzle during a quiet evening on the couch. That's just a dog being a dog. But when the pattern breaks, when it stops looking like affection and starts looking like a loop the dog can't exit on its own, that's the moment worth paying real attention to, and often the moment worth picking up the phone and calling a vet before the night gets any longer.